Welcome, everyone. Today, we will dive into the vibrant world of Indian e-commerce, the sector that has evolved over the last 18 years. From the time it started with its humble beginning to the times where we are today, where it's almost going to cross $120 billion of commerce in this year, right? The users have skyrocketed. Indian internet users almost about 700 million people today, with approximately 250 million people shopping online today. We are a part of this incredible journey where in the just last decade itself, it has just skyrocketed to the levels we have not seen. From the time where there was no one literally buying anything online to the time we can't believe our lives without buying anything online. It is a transformation space for us. Where it's not only creating the marketplaces, but spaces where people are beyond just the physical and cultural boundaries. Today, we will explore the vast digital market space where we are diving into insights from this comprehensive study of almost 7,000 diverse panelists. These voices have come from not only the metros, but also the serene countryside. And they have painted a vivid picture of Indian e-commerce today, which is not only filled with contradictions, but also a lot of complexities. The report, which we are talking about, had 50-odd questions asking from each of the panelists, and that's 7,000 people in the panel, with nuancing about their habits, their preferences, the barriers they faced, and also segregated by the population, the strata, age group, and gender. This approach has allowed us to capture a granular view of the Indian online shopper, not only the psyche, but also the revealing patterns and disparities that go beyond surface level of just the transaction data. From fashion to electronics, from groceries to healthcare, our findings are so depth that they actually tells you about an Indian consumer, not only from a pure play buying pattern, but also what drives and what preferences they have for their best suited marketplace. Today, we will reveal a kaleidoscope of Indian e-commerce, from shopping habits to platform preferences and their impact on the overall e-commerce industry. As we move along, each insight is a thread in the variety of the Indian digital landscape, which offers unique and very, very functional shape which will take across the nation for the e-commerce as an industry. We'll deep dive into 5 big insights today before we jump into the panel discussion. The first one, Indian shoppers straddle between the two worlds. On the one side, we have the quick satisfaction of a click now culture, and the other side, you have a thought of pause and value-driven choices. There's a dichotomy of Indian online shoppers that blend of impulse and introspection shopping. That's very, very rare to see in an Indian marketplace, considering that we actually are so large and we spread across 2 spectrums. When you look at the Indian online shopping, we observe there's a striking balance of young, prosperous user base and a slightly old, aged audience, which is rather going towards conservative. Now, the cautious approach is what is driving the force for Indian e-commerce, with almost 68% of the people who are falling into this conservative mindset. On the other hand side, we have this niche of 18%, people who are okay to do a quick commerce and immediate and look at the reward for instant gratification. Now, here is a substantial majority of the consumer, like we spoke about, that 68% of the people are actually spending time, a lot more time in deciding what they want. This is the part where you actually try and understand that how the entire differences is created. There is, on the one spectrum, we have people who are taking a decision in a matter of minutes. On the other spectrum, we have people who are taking months and months of their time to decide on what they want to buy. This is the complexity of our Indian shopping marketplace. Not only complexity, but so much of contradiction when it comes to how and what we buy. However, there is a conservative segment which is lending towards or tending towards high value products. So whenever you tend to make a decision on what is more pricey or what is more value in terms of high value, you are likely to take time and take a long time to take the decision, versus on the other side, when it's not necessarily a high value purchase, you are trying to make a decision immediately. And you can see it from food delivery, which is pretty much spanning across a few hours. It just takes few hours to take a decision versus something which you are buying like a household electronics versus a financial service, which will take almost 2 months to decide, right? And if you go across the entire report, we have seen this for 18 odd categories on how the pendulums shift between a few hours to a month and in between the 15, 20 days. So what should a brand do? A brand which is trying to get people on both spectrums, right? They are essentially outside of optimizing the middle and the lower funnel to drive the sales, but they need to deliver the promise of today and future now, because consumers are looking for that, right? They are looking for consumption and investment patterns in whatever they buy today. It's not necessarily that I want to buy something today, but I'm totally okay with not taking care of it or not even looking at it in the future. That's not what consumers want. They're demanding, they are looking for both the spectrums today. So it's very important for a brand to delve into both of them and ensure that there is a consumption and investment pattern and the promise which you fulfill for now and future. Second insight, each product category and each shopper adds their own unique color to the overall picture. Now that's very unique again to India in a way, because we have these shopping missions, or we normally call it the shopping occasions. And the way the category and the consumer today is straddling between these shopping missions. What is surprising is that when I showcase a couple of insights on how it is far from reality of what we expect it to be versus what a surprise factor it is. But the fact is that people actually are in these shopping missions. And the shopping mission changes for every individual whenever they want to buy. It's not something which is fixed, but it straddles again between what is important for you, what is important for me. Now, what we realized each is that because the shopper is actually straddling between what we call is the shopping missions or the purchases occasions, their need actually changes from a routine to an emergency, right? Something which I need it right now versus I need it maybe in the future, but I want to know something more right now, versus something I just want to buy it right now. Like I want to have it in my pocket, in my hand right away, like instantly. And that's where the entire spectrum actually changes. The beautiful part is when we actually start dissecting the entire shopping missions within the 18 categories, what we notice is that each of these shopping missions and the categories varies for age groups, NCCS, pop strata, gender, and whatnot. Right? For what it is impulse for a youth could be an occasion for a 35-year-old guy. Right? And that's the beauty of, or the dichotomy of Indian e-commerce in a way. I'll give you a couple of examples here, right? So food delivery, which used to be maybe 3-4 years back as an emergency, considering that the food space was not that evolved, is actually a norm now. It is part of a routine buy, right? That's how the world and India has moved forward in this entire marketplace and the ecosystem. Travel, which used to be an occasion, a lot of people in India, even today, who are maybe 35, 45-year-old plus, would consider travel as an occasion, right? And they want to just look at that occasion. Versus someone today who is looking for an expert service of when they want to travel, how they want to travel, and what are the things they want to look at in the travel. That's the way the India has evolved from what we say is the shopping missions, because, like I said, it changes for each individual. It could be something for you, it could be something else for me. Now, when we, as a brand, as a marketer, as a platform, or just consumers, right, we need to identify and cater to these shopping missions. It's very, very important today, because not everyone is same. We are not living in a homogeneous world. And there are ways to reach out to them. Like we normally say at Interactive Avenues, there's always a right time, a right place, and the right moment where you need to go after the right person. That is the most critical part of living those shopping moments and making ensuring that you are targeting those consumers in the shopping missions. This actually is one of my favorite insights, right? I remember 10 years back when we were launching Amazon in India, and we were doing this study on what would make a consumer come to Amazon and buy from there, right? One of the biggest things which we found back then was that people want assistance. People don't know how to shop online, right? How to was a big thing. Trust me, a decade later, it still is. From necessity to an expectation. That's the width of the Indian marketplace, which has grown, right, from necessity to an expectation today. Just that it has changed its form. Earlier, it used to be something else. Today, it is something else. And we'll touch upon it in the next slide. Very interesting point again. When we dissect the assistance by age group, we see a variety of reasons and the features coming up. A youth today is essentially looking at assistance not from holding their hands, but giving them tools to make the decision better, right? They are looking at chatbot, they are looking at AI recommendations, they are looking at making or probably seeing a product in 3D versus someone who's older, who's basically asking for, hey, I am new to shopping online today. How do you help me, right? How do I do, what do I do, and where should I start? So the spectrum of assistance has actually changed its form from purely hand-holding to going few steps ahead and asking for tools and techniques which helps me in making a decision in that recommendation. And a age-old thing which does not change in India. I think we love returns. We love to return products. And in the research also, it is no different. The majority of the people who turn to e-commerce is looking at one thing, how easy it is to return. Outside of the whole thing of, hey, I have products, I have millions and billions of products online. I have a lucrative program for loyalty, and I'll give you X number of coupons and whatnot when you are shopping on my platform, but continues to be the same thing of early returns or easy returns. That's still very important for an Indian consumer. It changes, however, when you look at the older age segment and the younger age segment. Younger, as we normally call it, they're very fickle-minded, and they want to make the decision very, very fast. It's not only the decision, but also the expectation of delivery, which is super fast. And some of the platforms which you will observe today are actually making this promise. And I'm not sure if even the invention of or the new category, like we call it quick commerce, is actually talking to these youth of India today who just wants everything now and here and now in the next 10 minutes. I won't be surprised if someone comes up with a platform which says that, hey, I'll just place the order and I'm going to ring your doorbell because I'm already standing out with the product, right? I know what you're going to order. So yeah. Now, again, what are the implications therefore for brands? Very simple. Keep it engaging. We always say that engagement drives the value. It actually resonates with the ever-changing preferences of the youth. But the engaging interaction we are talking about here needs to be mindful, or we need to be mindful of the interaction which is resonating with the youth. Like we gave an example of, if you tell a youth of India today that we will tell you how to shop online, he'll probably never ever turn to your platform. What you need to give them is the tools and the techniques which helps them make the decision faster. Give them AI. Give them a 3D model of how they will look and whatnot will happen when they buy this product. Versus older demographics, which continues to ask for the validation, continues to ask for the hand-holding, because that's how they are. They're not too digitally savvy, and they're not too digitally equipped to handle the e-commerce platforms. The fourth one is, it's a bit of a, how should I put it, a controversial topic, right, in a way, because social is big, yes. But I don't know if social commerce is still a fad or it's here to stay, right? The jury is still out there. However, what we know for sure is that social definitely is an important discovery platform. It's probably one of the most influential platforms in making a choice for any consumer today. However, if you look at the data and what the research is throwing out, it's still far away from becoming a full-fledged sales channel, right? And the number speaks for itself. It's very small today, even with the pure bread of the social commerce we see in other markets like China and maybe other Asian markets. India is nowhere close right now, and that is exactly what is reflected in the reports today, in our survey in the report. However, if you see what are the categories which are driving the social commerce, fashion and beauty continues to be the mainstay, right? And I'm not surprised, because the way the social has certainly boomed for the fashion industry as a large, fashion and beauty industry as a large, it does seem like they are actually making the headway for a growth on social commerce. But there are very, very compelling categories which are still missing in the social commerce space. And one other thing which we have noticed is that these are the categories which you see are not necessarily high value products, right? That's where one of the biggest differences we see in normal e-commerce and marketplaces versus a social commerce. We do not see the categories which requires you to spend time, which requires your attention to actually think about the product you want to buy and then make a decision and make a call. Because the categories which are currently being sold on social commerce in whatever way it is available today, it is largely driven by the low value product where you can make a decision in an impulse and feel okay about it, right? And that's one of the biggest differences. When it comes to the reasons of why people don't prefer on buying on social, and I'm sure everyone in this room probably would have faced this now and then, maybe in your personal experiences, continues to be the worrisome factor of quality and authenticity, right? And it has happened with me also. What I've seen online on a shop, on a social platform turns out to be very, very different. In fact, sometimes I don't even get the product because that site doesn't exist or that social platform does not exist, which is actually offering that. And it's a fact, right? People are talking about it, that the quality is bad. They don't think it's a genuine product. We do get swayed away by some of those large claims of maybe, a big branded product selling at 80% discount and a mere fraction of what is supposed to sell at. But we do get swayed away by that. The second, again, this is the part which actually differentiate the entire social commerce to any other marketplaces, to D2C, and to the verticals in a way, right? You still struggle with the delivery time. Now, connect this with the previous insight of what the youth is looking for today. They want everything immediate. They want everything now. And when you have the delivery timelines of they're actually slower than what a normal e-commerce would actually deliver it to you. There's always this problem of, am I getting my product early? Am I getting it later? So we don't know about that. The second, obviously, is the shipping charges, because we are not in the world of e-commerce where if you buy a product which is 300, 400 bucks and you get the shipping free. It continues to be a big problem for the consumers today. And especially when we talk about the categories which we are buying, we are like 500, 600 rupees, and then you end up paying a shipping charges. It definitely becomes a deterrent to the movement of social commerce in India. So what should a brand do therefore, right? And I think I'll stick my neck out right now, considering social commerce is far from a sales channel. Continue to use it as a media influence channel till the time you build up the entire ecosystem of delivery, returns, and obviously the authenticity factor, which is very, very important for consumers and the youth today. And continue to forge those genuine relationships, which are very, very important, because those are the places where you can actually make those genuine relationships which are otherwise not possible, since there is a two-way conversation which is happening. And the last one. I think India today is at that pivotal moment in the Indian e-commerce industry, where we will see the shift happening with the shifting loyalties, with the brands flowing into e-commerce space and D2C, and users looking for alternative options. India will finally move on to a different spectrum of how they choose to buy, what are the reasons of going beyond just the marketplace, in fact, going into a D2C and going into the verticals. This is the time, this is the pinnacle movement as we stand today, which is going to change everything for India's entire market space. And what's leading this entire thing are the two broad pieces, right? One is on the one side, you have the vertical marketplaces, which have grown up suddenly, become big, actually giving competition or even better than some of the big ones in certain categories. And on the other hand, you have the brands directly talking to the consumers in a D2C environment. These are some of the codes which normally e-commerce used to offer to the consumers. You talk about the fast delivery, you talk about the free delivery, and you talk about the discounted and the cheaper prices. On the other hand, you have the assurance and you have the quality and the authenticity, which is lacking on a marketplace today, which all these brands, especially the D2C brands, are actually able to offer today. Now, combine both of them together, you will realize what Indian consumer wants today, a mix of both the world, a best of both the worlds, which is vast variety, fast delivery, easy returns, and the much needed authentic and assurance from the brand. They're able to get that from D2C. So why would a consumer actually only be restricted on a e-commerce or a marketplace today? They have all what they need to move to D2C or verticals. And that's why I say today, this is the pivotal movement in India, in India's e-commerce industry, which is going to change, or from now onwards, you're going to see the change happening. On the other side, the things which do not go in favor of marketplace, and I continue to see this over the last 10 years of my experience on working with one of the biggest marketplaces, trust and assurance. It continues to be one of the biggest factor. And when we saw this entire report on this from the panelists, we were surprised to see that it continues to exist today, not only from a small or younger audience group, but also straddling across all pop strata. Even an NCCS A person today sitting out on metro has this fear that whether their product are genuine, which they get from a marketplace, whether the product they are getting, they'll get the brand warranty and the assurance, which a brand usually promise when you buy it from their D2C. Right? And this continues to be the big question, which is basically helping a D2C brand today to stand up and take that pie away. There are specific sectors which are driving that force. Fashion continues to be the one disruptor. It used to be one of the biggest entry points for consumers on e-commerce maybe 10 years back. It continues to be today. The only difference is the share of wallet is shifting from a marketplace and moving towards a D2C. Right? That's a change which we are witnessing. And with that, the last implication for the brands would be that, hey, you will need to finally straddle across both the spectrums. We need marketplaces for growth, but at the same time, D2C will become the mainstay and will continue to be the mainstay for the e-commerce industry. I'll just repeat out the 5 things we spoke about today. The number 1, Indian shopper is shopping. However, it's still conservative in their approach. Almost 70% of the people think a lot before buying online. There are certain categories, there are certain niche of users who are okay to buy something which is immediate. Number 2, there are shopping missions. It's very, very important to identify those missions, and those missions will change by the audience, by what we buy, by where we buy. Third, assistance used to be a necessity. It's an expectation now. And any marketer, whether it's from a marketplace or a vertical or a D2C, should start building on those specific industry-leading technologies which helps them make the decision faster. Fourth, social commerce continues to be the most important discovery and influential platform, just that it may not be a full-fledged sales channel just now. And lastly, marketplaces serves the most online shoppers, but they are definitely bleeding to the categories, vertical marketplaces and D2C platforms. With that, we will release a full-fledged version of the report in some time. But I would like to invite the panelists for a quick discussion on how Indian consumers chooses between vertical, horizontal, and D2C. I'll like to call on stage Satya from Google and Manoj from Vision. You got a coffee? Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah, Thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking our time and wanting to have a quick discussion on how do we see the Indian market space
Can I
specifically.
thank you for the excellent presentation first? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll start off with you first, Satya. Considering that you have the biggest data set there is available today to understand a consumer psyche, and what have you observed in Google, like on the shift which is happening from a marketplace to a vertical to a D2C? Do you also see the same trend happening now, or do you still feel it's too early to say?
No, a lot of things that we see at Google actually are pretty similar. We probably use different words to express the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about people who are taking from 1 second to 50 days, that is just how we refer to what we call the messy middle, where consumers spend a lot of time. They go to various sources to decide ultimately what they want to buy and things like that. You also talked about different kinds of shoppers. You talked about emergencies. You talked
Yeah.
about impulse. So a lot of that is what we are able to understand from behavior on Google search. So at this point of time, I think one thing is for sure: the Indian consumer is spoiled for choice,
Yeah.
and will be, right, even more, right? What she now gets online is the spread is just amazing, and it's increasing day by day. You have large FMCG companies now, investing in food startups who are offering, specialized health food and things like that. So I think our ability or a brand's ability to adapt to the changing needs of the consumer is ultimately what will allow them to win, whether it's a marketplace or whether it is a D2C brand. From our vantage point of view, we are able to see organic consumer behavior through all those search trends. And we're seeing that consumers are searching using not just different languages, but different terminologies for the same thing. So they're very broad in their mind when they're searching in the beginning, and then they narrow down over time. So we built AI-based products to kind of tap into that. From our advertising part of the business, where we work very
Yeah.
closely with IA, IPG, the whole opportunity to get a brand to reach their customer at the right time, at the right place, with the right kind of creative is what is giving us a lot of knowledge about that. So at this point of time, nobody's won. It's
Yeah.
open. I think, the consumer is winning, frankly speaking.
Yeah.
But I'd love to hand it over
Yeah.
to Manoj,
Manoj, I
maybe.
think
Yeah.
you have the most active and real-time panel which is available today on any device, right? Specifically, what do you see? Do you see that there are categories where the consumption on e-commerce is actually going down versus some of the other things which are going up in the, let's say, D2C or a vertical, maybe someone like who's an aggregator for fashion, maybe. So do you see that trend actually moving towards that space specifically? And second question, on the same lines, on do you see that there's a difference in, is it a younger group which is moving faster versus the older group which is not that moving faster? Because that's something which we kind of notice in our report. So
Nice. Firstly, excellent presentation. And I must say, I am not going to forget this lunch gyan that Satya gave me, saying that we are trying to double guess whether a 2-year-old kid is going to become an engineer, will get married when he is 26 or she is 27, and probably have 3 kids. So, thanks for that. I just answered him, ask Gemini.
yeah,
And so hopefully
perfect.
you use that. And I must tell you, Karan, one of your slides had a nice word called surprises.
Yeah,
And the beauty of research, especially passive research, is when you get surprised. When there is a holy cow sitting,
yeah,
everybody knows, "Arey, my wife buys this from my kirana wala, so that means the whole world is going to be like a wife." Yes, but sometimes that is the wake-up call that happens. And we have seen over and over again in passive measurement. We have a panel of almost 90,000 now, and with customers across product categories. And one thing I can definitely tell you, for premium product categories, let's take beauty and wellness or high-end cosmetics, there is that, kind of thing about research and keep on checking and then arrive at something, couple of platforms, वगैरह. For product categories that are staple, which are probably on your, kind of monthly list or weekly shopping list, there is a nice chance that the journey, which is the next part of your mission,
yeah,
you ended with mission. Every
yeah,
mission has a journey which either starts from search or from product page, or it starts from probably even a browse or on an ad that you've seen on the top funnel. We have seen that there is a distinct difference between journeys that are meant for premium category products and journeys that are meant for staple products. I'm not saying less premium, I'm
Yeah.
saying staple.
Staple.
Which means if it is a packaged food, I know that this glass of water is going to have a glass water only. तो उसमें और कुछ देखना नहीं है. At best, you are going to see whether there is an expiry date to that. Whereas when I look at a beauty product and it's going to be foliating my skin, or whether it is a keratin-driven thing or something, there is a feature, there is a benefit, and there is a, tashan, as they call in Hindi. So all these three come together. Hence the journeys are different.
Yeah.
And your second question is it different by age factor? If you ask me, I would say that yes, there is. The younger organization of our whole country, the 18 to 24, if you can call it out,
Yeah.
probably has a way which they have grown into internet. They have already grown into internet. Whereas the ones that you said is hedonistic, yeah, nice word,
Yes.
but are conservative.
Conservative.
So thoda sa uske andar oxymoron hai, a little bit.
I think
That is an insight.
yeah.
That when my wife, who's meaning my age, I'm from past century, but when she is wanting to buy that thing that she has liked, let's say, she would still check. She would look at the reviews. She would look at how many people have returned X, Y, Z, if those things are there. Whereas if my daughter is buying, even if the cost of that is 7 times higher, ek chutki mein ho jata.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what my view.
This very nice, the consumer journey you're talking about. But is it also true for a big ticket purchase, even for your daughter in that matter?
Excellent question. Again, coming back to product categories and first principle thinking, the amount of time that you have seen, that 51 say
Correct.
that
From
whole thing,
few hours to 2 months.
100% true hai. Naturally, you've taken this, research that you've done on a qualitative basis, asked questions.
Yeah.
We see it actually.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, if you are buying a dosa, let's say tu Powai mein rehta hai, your dosa has to come, you have to eat a dosa. What is your criteria? It's not whether it is 120 rupees versus 130 rupees. It is about 6 minutes versus
6
8
minutes
minutes.
versus, yeah.
है ना? So that is where we see a little bit of comparison happening, especially in duopolies. But when you come to big billion days and when you come to large things that they do, and suddenly you got 80% discount on a big 75-inch screen, you put all that and keep on putting it into the cart. बाद में जाके देखता है when there is 4 hours left for that sale to end.
Yeah.
At that time you make your decision.
Yeah.
So there is a way in which people are doing this in a nice way. It again comes back to product category. If product categories make it simpler for buying, by making it transparent, by putting out features that are easily discernible, I feel it will make a tremendous difference.
I just want to jump in on
Yeah.
one point, right, which is, older folks versus younger folks. I think the opportunity is for us to, and one of your slides talk about that, which talks about assistance.
Yes.
The opportunity is to try and figure out what do we need to do to serve a consumer base which is perhaps older,
Yeah.
and make it easier for them, right? Because it's not that they're not mobile savvy or computer savvy. I mean, look what they do at 8 a.m. in the morning
Yes.
to WhatsApp,
Yes.
right? The whole country is sending messages to each other. So the opportunity is to simplify, is to figure out how to give more assistance, will open up a lot of
And
opportunities.
I think there's a linked question to that, and I do keep quoting my mom on this one because every time I see her, she's probably one of the biggest users of YouTube, right? For her, it's only about cooking, right? But when you talk about the assistance specifically, and there is a variety of assistance in a way, the forms are different for younger versus the older age group. Let's talk about Google for a second. How is Google, whether through products or otherwise, helping out brands in talking to both these consumers, especially in the assistance space? Because that continues to be the big stay for the e-commerce industry as a whole, right? Whether you are a D2C brand or whether you are a marketplace.
Yeah, so I can talk a little broadly at first and try and get a little more specific. So at the end of the day, what Google search does, or even YouTube to an extent, is to organize all the information and try and present it in the best possible manner. Whether it is through a shopping feed, which allows for a wide variety of selection, or whether it is through information and now through AI and all of that. I think that is consumer agnostic. But over time, the search engine recognizes uh, on the basis of what people are searching for, and customizes that information for them as well, right? So that we're on mission, to use another word from that
Yes.
thing, on that one. And what I just think is the big challenge that we are now facing and trying to solve for actively is Indian languages. That is the holy grail at this point of time. And there was a very nice example, one of our folks who are working on the AI side of the business, is they customized mispronunciations of products on the basis of the dialect.
Yeah.
So we collected a lot of information on dialects that are commonly used, and dialects change every 100, 200 kilometers. So typically if you search for a Maruti car, in some parts of the country you're searching for a Maruti, and you type that also in a different way, or you speak it in a different manner.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity, big opportunity we are trying to help all brands with is to actually try and make sure it's a level playing field, not just across ages, but across every part of India.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing, because I do remember, when we are talking about assistance, and one of the factors we figured out was that, hey, language barrier is one of the biggest thing in assistance, and specifically for people who are, let's say, NCCS B, C plus, and may not be well versed with English. So something like that would work brilliantly for that, right? But are you also kind of developing tools which can be plugged in directly on a D2C marketplace, or is it purely from a marketing ad standpoint only? So how does the
Yeah, no,
both will work?
across the board, right? With D2C brands,
Yeah.
D2C brand wants to be laser sharp in reaching out to their customer. They want to know exactly who that consumer is.
Yeah.
They want to know how they're able to reach him or her in the in the most optimal manner. So a lot of our AI products on the ad side precisely do that, right? Whether it is broad match or value-based bidding, try and get them to the most valuable consumer is something that they all want. So on the ad side, a bunch of things happening, and the consumer side is
Yeah, it
literally
is
all of these things
literally.
that I talked
Yeah.
about.
I think one of the things which probably IPG is working with Google globally is on this AI thing, right? And what I remember is that there's this collaboration happening on the AI-led ads, etc. So hopefully we'll see that soon. What about you,
You
Manoj?
know,
What do you feel?
just to hang on to that point of spelling, call it mistakes, but it is so beautiful as the dialect changes. Every 300 kilometers in a country kind of
Yes.
undergoes a change. I cannot, resist but say that one of our customers, very powerful in the foods business, let's say, actually intrigued us by saying that here are the total number of keyword searches that we want you to track. And believe it or not, almost 50% of those searches were actual spelling mistakes.
Wow, that's a lot.
So look at the insight that brands already have. These are powerful brands. They're ruling the country. They understand and they're adopting to the electronic age like rapidly. So you see this, and even for digital folk like us, it was a surprise, saying that this is real consumer behavior that these guys are champions of. And when you see the biscuit spelled as BISKUT, or whether it is in Pandulipi or whether it is Devanagari and everything, it has come out. And it is astonishingly, how do you say, illustrative of what our country is. So I must say that, the autocomplete feature that whoever invented, maybe it is part of the Android ecosystem, is just amazing. And it just helps you that. On the voice aided conversion of text to speech, or speech to text rather, is again become extremely powerful. And these probably are featuring in some of the things that you do. And thanks a lot for that, Google. मुझे ऐसे लगता है, Karan, there is a distinct requirement of understanding the consumer not just by the age into gender into NCCS into something else, because the whole, let's call the NCCS piece, is probably calling for a reinvention. There is a very big effort that has been put in by industry for trying to see what else can be done. Last week there was major, kind of declaration there. These are the factors that will probably build you the fundamentals of the next internet.
Yeah. No, I think you touched upon a very nice point, and the way we articulate this, and there's another way which Google articulates, is using the shopping missions, for example, right? And this goes beyond NCCS. This goes beyond demographics in general, right? And what I've observed is wherever in that shopping mission, whenever you look at the word expert, right? Whenever it comes as one of the missions is like, I want expert advice or expert in something, I do see a large play of brands directly and D2C directly, because that's the space they actually can own today, right? And Satya, one question to you on that front specifically. Do you think these, and while the industry will move forward on NCCS and the other ways of defining the common currency, because digital is here to stay and you can't really look at digital from an NCCS standpoint, but these shopping missions or whatever you call it at Google, do you think this is the right way of defining the consumer behavior, specifically for the brands who are venturing into D2C? Because you can then convert some of those basis those needs in a way, right? These are need states end of the day.
Yeah, I think missions are nothing but a different way of talking about different personas.
Yes,
And
need state.
in another few months, when cookies get deprecated,
Yeah,
it'll be very important for brands to actually use their first-party data, and then use that to then look for
yeah,
personas
yeah,
on other platforms and all of that, right?
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the consumer is seeking privacy. So I think it's very important to understand consumers in as many ways and dimensions as possible. There will be more. Your model will evolve next
Correct.
year when you do this report in that sense, as we learn more about the consumer. But a lot of that really resonated with me, right? I think there's one battle that is very interesting, which is like maybe 6 to 12 months old in our lives, right? Which is this 5 minute or 10-minute grocery business.
Yes.
Earlier, if and this happened to me, we were sitting on a Saturday night thinking about breakfast for Sunday, and there was a friend over, and I proudly said that, yeah, we'll have sambar tomorrow morning along with idlis. And then, from the kitchen, we found out that we didn't have sambar powder. Now, ideally, we would have had to wait till next morning to, go to the shop or whatever. But I used Zepto, and that's how I discovered Zepto for the first
Yeah.
time. So that is a very interesting battle. But the good thing is Zepto is also working with the
With the
local
D2C brands or
shop
shop, yeah,
right
directly
nearby
also.
in that
Both.
sense. So it's a very interesting model. The
Yeah,
economics,
yeah.
obviously, of that will play out over time. But I was a naysayer for instant commerce. I was like, why would I need it? But the fact of the matter is that if you're able to give better service, we will
Yes.
get attracted to it over
Absolutely.
time.
Right. And I think one of the things which we have also noticed, right, in the research when we were trying to understand the behaviors and the patterns of consumers, there used to be things which used to be only with marketplaces earlier, right? The thing like you spoke about, the fast delivery or some of the other things like discounts and a lot of other things. Now it's actually everywhere. It doesn't need to be necessarily rested only on one marketplace in a way. The verticals are leading their own space specifically. You have travel, you have fashion, you have beauty, which are probably doing much, much more than a marketplace, right? And similarly on D2C spectrum also. But one factor, which is sort of the differentiator, continues to be the trust and insurance, right? And wherever consumer wants, and look at the way today we are living, trust and insurance is even more important than it was ever. So, and in your experience, you have worked with a lot of brands, especially D2C. Do you think that the brands are doing enough to harp on the trust and assurance factor, or the fact that, hey, you are buying it directly from the brand, or somewhere they're kind of driving only the lure funnel without actually talking about the trust and assurance
Yeah,
factor?
no, I think definitely every brand can do better, right? And maybe 2 years ago, we were all faced with the opportunity to buy medicines online.
Yeah.
But in that first year, if you wanted to buy a medicine, sometimes you would not be able to read, what is on the back side, because that is the
Yes.
more important part of it, right? When you buy a medicine, you want to see the expiry date and all of that. So I think definitely that was a problem or a stumbling block in the beginning, but now they have overcome that, and it's much more descriptive, much more visual, and things like that. So I think correct information is very, very important.
Important.
More information need not be the answer. Less information is definitely a bad thing. So I think in each category there will be that balance that they will find. You're right. People are now able to try out a dress, and although fashion is the one that is surprising in
Yeah.
many places in that
Yeah.
sense,
Yeah.
it's also the one that has so much more opportunity. So I'm kind of tall, so when I search for a pair of jeans, I need 34-inch inseam.
Yeah.
But no marketplace or any D2C player actually sometimes, even lists that. They all talk about waist, but they don't talk about length.
Yeah. So
So
there's a big opportunity.
exactly,
Big opportunity.
it's just opportunity. So I think that's where coming back, understand the consumer. What does he or she want? Whether it is call or quant or panels, I think that's important.
Yeah. Manoj, what's your point of view on that? Like considering that you have seen active panelists, and do you see where people are actually dropping out more on the marketplaces considerably because of the same issue, right? While it's very difficult to get a sense whether it's a branded product or whether it's actually sold by some reseller, but do you see that happening on the panel on your active real-time panel where the consumer is actually dropping off because of the same reason?
Actually, yes. And again, going back to my first point, that it depends on the product category. And let's stick to some high-end cosmetics or beauty products or wellness products. Because there is a vertical that is probably available in the country, which is servicing that particular product category, there is a little bit of research that happens on marketplaces, but the buy happens on that vertical. Now, is that vertical actually discounting that product because it is a specialized vertical? I wouldn't know because we don't compare prices. But the factor of trust, which is what you kind of opened this particular segment with, is where because it is a specialist, it will know a little bit more about my lipstick than the generalist, which is going to say that availability hai, assortment hai. But what is the benefit and features is probably known to the specialist. So I think we see that in terms of journeys that I keep on saying that we map. The searching oriented journeys are more on verticals and the quick journeys are on horizontals where people come saying that yes, staple hai, mere ko kharidna hai. That is where we keep on seeing it. I must say one point from the D2C perspective. If I am a D2C brand or a company today, young company, maybe 2 years old, what am I looking at is product market fit. What am I looking at is transactions. What am I looking at is she buying my product, let's say. So the focus of D2C in early part of their life stage is to generate transactions. Therefore, they are bottom funnel focused.
Yeah.
So they may not be, pardon my saying that, Mr. Google, but it may not be a YouTube brand building activity, but it could be some other platform that they are using for driving bottom funnel sales. That's potential issue number one or area number one. But when we see them now getting product market fit, and coming out of that whole tunnel, saying that, yeah, now I'm a brand.
Yeah.
That's when they start saying that, okay, now I'll go into brand advertising. I'll buy one, shop in Hirapanna and all those kind of things start happening. Is that the right way of looking at business? Meaning we leave it to that, the jury is out there to decide. But D2C initially looks for transactions and D2C later looks for branding. But the underpinning thing, which is again one of your very nice slides, is that is there returns? Is there quick delivery? Am I going to get the correct product? Is the description of the product matching with what got delivered? Is probably the trust factor which is coming there. I am still waiting, to see some companies win that battle.
Yeah.
It is still out there. I think it's early days.
It's still early. I think I kind of agree on that because it's too early to say, but I feel that we are at this pinnacle, this point in time where it's from now onwards only going to change, right? Because the share of wallet has already started moving towards verticals and D2C brands together. Right? Okay.
What may be interesting, just a point to note, is at least my experiences in the US, is that the horizontal platforms out there probably are a smaller part of the market than India. And the vertical platforms, whether it's retail or something, maybe Satya has better take on that, seems to be much there because they are servicing these markets in a specialist-oriented way.
And I think somewhere the exclusivity plays an important role. Like in the US, if there are so many brands who are only available on their own respective D2C platforms, they're not available on any verticals and horizontals. Like today in India, you still you don't get Zara on any of the platforms. So if you want to buy Zara, you have to go to their store. So that's one of the approaches. Maybe in the future when India is slightly more towards buying, the duration, like it's still pretty high for people who are buying a lot of things, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks down the line. The moment it shifts to a one-day kind of a decision making, maybe you will see a lot of these D2C brands come up. Last question to both of you gentlemen here. Growth and future. How do you feel that happening for D2C specifically, because marketplaces are here, they're probably going to stay here. Verticals are going to give them the competition in specific categories. But the future to me seems very bright for D2C and with the factors we spoke about. But love to hear your views on.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where a little bit of a build, but maybe a different point of view on something that you said earlier, which is I still don't think there is one right way to build a brand at this
Yeah.
point of time. It's different strokes for different brands, right? I mean, you see a brand, you might call it premium or whatever, but a brand like Bose, which is pretty premium in that sense.
Yes.
But you'll see Bose, they have their signature stores where people walk in for the experience. Maybe they come and buy the home theaters there out there. They have their own website as well, which is for the discerning person. Maybe they have a broader variety, and they're on Amazon, Flipkarts of the world. Even brands like Apple
Yes.
are, it's like omni-channel, right? That's the other way of looking at D2C. Mama Earth, for example, amazing D2C brand, also available on Amazon. So I still think that there is no one right way to build a brand at this point of time. We are still that market where things are not as certain as they are in the US.
Yeah.
We are still growing, and we are still, I feel, that adolescent kind of, we are in that life stage, right, where we do a lot of crazy different things. We might become a boring economy like the US at some point of time, where everything is sorted and all of
So
that.
right now, as per you, will it be crawl, walk, or run? That's a typical Google
I would
language.
say everything is happening at the same point of time. We might like to say crawl, walk, and run,
But we are
but
walking and running at the same time.
yeah, I mean, we're maybe the way to put it is that walking fast and occasionally flying. I don't know, whatever, what do you want to call it. But yeah, I think it's exactly that. Penetration of commerce is at a very nascent stage. But the good thing about India, which is really the multiplier effect that is happening, is all these stacks, right? Whether it's the payment stack, logistics stack, they feed off each other.
Yeah.
And that is the unique opportunity for all kinds of brands.
Undoubtedly. I have to say one thing, Karan, I must say. There are some D2C companies who feel that once they have achieved one kind of critical mass, we are going to go independent. That's almost to what Satya is saying, that even Bose, who has got a store right from the time that they got incorporated, is available on platforms. So omni-channel is the way to go.
Yes.
Now I'll give you an example of one last quick one. There's a big washing powder in the country. It's a 10,000 crore brand. Now they can easily afford to be their own D2C, their own distribution, their own retailers, their own everything, their own exclusive everything. But no, it is still available out of 3.5 million shops in the country.
Yeah.
It is still available on all platforms. So therefore, is D2C your brand definition, or is D2C your distribution-oriented philosophy? Is what I think everyone needs to contemplate. And I completely agree with Satya that there may be horses for courses, that all brands need not go to the same linear cycle. So there are examples that can be counted out on the both
No, I
sides.
think
So that's how I see it.
in a way you're right, because Indian e-commerce is about 2%, 3% of overall shopping space in India. So it's pretty small right now. But the way it's growing, and the way it's growing in the last decade or so, it's going to supercharge to a different level altogether.